And ladies and gentlemen, here we are. After months and months of anticipation, the very first episode of Breakdown Theory is here live. And I could not be more honored than anyone else by Stay Metal Ray himself for joining me on this episode. Ray, thank you so much, man. Thank you.
Hey man, thanks for having me. Pressure's on for being the first guest, first episode. So, if I do really well, I'll set the bar for everybody else that has to match me. But all kidding aside, man, thanks for having me. I'm just messing around. I appreciate it.
Nah, it's been good. I know I've kind of alluded to a few people in the tight inner circle about this, and they've been so excited. And yeah, I figure we're just going ahead and jump right into this. And what I'd like for us to do today is for us to take a journey of where it all started for you. And maybe jump in here and there and talk about some things and just see where we go. Because you are definitely a unique individual in the sense that music theory is your baby. So much so that you made an actual website for music theory for metal.
Yeah.
Which is
it's pretty wild, right?
Yeah, it's insane, and we'll get to there, but if you would,
cool.
Let's start at the beginning. Where did it all start from? What was the part where you got a hold of music and it just kind of was like it grabbed you and you're like, wow, this is something that I'm really enjoying?
For sure, man. Well, thank you again. Just thank you for allowing me to tell the story, because I love my story because it's a unique one, and I think everybody has a unique story. So, just thanks for allowing me to do so. Music really grabbed me because this isn't a joke, man. This is true. My first memory. This isn't cliche. This sounds cliche, but it's true. My first memory is literally listening to "Nothing Else Matters" by Metallica and "Alive" by the band Pearl Jam. This is like 1992. My first memories are literally being on the floor of my dad's old house, and he was listening to Pearl Jam's 10, the CD or cassette it might have been back then. This is like 1992, and I can just remember being in my crib and being on the floor listening to Pearl Jam's 10, and my dad wasn't a Metallica fan, so it must have been the radio, but I can vividly remember hearing "Nothing Else Matters" as like under a year old. And people say you're lying, but I have no reason to make that up. It's just the literal truth, man. But anyway, that's like my earliest memory. So the reason why I just say that is because just music was always a constant around in the house, in the background, in the foreground, between my mom and my dad. My mom and my dad divorced very, very young, so I always had two different houses. So whenever I go to spend time with my dad, it was just music on all the time, and it was just a way to fill the dead space of the house. There was never just quiet. It was always just loud, and he was always playing Zeppelin or the Sex Pistols, the Clash, even some Def Leppard in there every once in a while. This music was all over the place. So I guess I would just attribute music, being a constant in my life to my father, because he always just had music on and around the house when I was growing up, and
sure,
even into my teenage years and beyond. That's just what he always did to fill the space of the house, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So when you were over at your mom's, was there any music? Did she gravitate towards any genre or anyone in particular?
Not really. So it's funny. My mom likes music, but she wasn't a diehard like my dad is. But my mom is very talented artistically, very good drawer and very good painter. And she's retired now, but back in the day she used to draw furniture and cabinets and stuff like that at her job. So she was a graphic. I don't know the title. Forgive me for being naive, but she would draw cabinets and like I said, just layouts for houses, and then the builders would go and build it, and then in her free time she would paint and she would draw and all that. So like I said, music wasn't really her forte. She was a fan of music, she liked music, but she's very creative and very gifted in terms of artistic expression. So in a way, I feel like I got that from her, subconsciously, because I didn't figure that out until like I was in my 20s. That I myself is I would like to think I'm a little artistic,
Mm-hmm.
and creative. So it was kind of cool. It was like my dad's not artistic or creative, but he loves music. My mom's not really a huge fan of music, but is extremely creative. So it's like kind of got both of their
Yeah.
superpowers. You know what I mean? Like
Oh
I
yeah.
got both of them. So that's just how it worked.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're growing up. At what point were you wanting like to actually play guitar versus all the other instruments? Because I mean, of course, you got drums, bass, and even just singing and whatnot. Was there anything that in particular that you're like, that's it, that's what I want to do?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's again My dad my dad bought like a Martin D42 acoustic, which is a big old expensive acoustic
Ooh,
guitar.
yeah.
And then he played that for a couple years. He was a casual player. Like he bought it just cuz like it was like a cool thing to have in the house, like
Mm-hmm.
a cool guitar or whatever. And then he eventually bought a Les Paul Studio in like the
Mm.
early 2000s. So that matched with he loved buying DVDs, like live DVDs, and he would buy like the Jimi Hendrix movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's like Jimi Hendrix, like on the cover, he's like playing a 12-string
Oh
acoustic.
man.
He's got like the crazy hat. I'm sure like it's an iconic movie, iconic shot. But like that, and then like Stevie Ray Vaughan live at the El Macumbo in like 1983 in Texas.
Oh, for
So
sure.
like he would like buy all these DVDs and then like show me as like a 10-year-old, and like he would like
That's awesome.
yeah, like it was so sick. Like he would like freak out and like watch it. And then like another one too I have to mention is Led Zeppelin. I think it's just called the Led Zeppelin DVD,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a DVD CD, and the CD was called How the West Was Won, that came out in 2003. It was a
Mm-hmm.
live 3-disc CD matched with the 2-disc DVD. Anyway, that, and then like the other ones that I just mentioned, like he would just throw them on and like show me, and like and he would freak out and like be like, "This is so cool! Like, wow, they're so insane." And then me being a little kid, I'd be like, "Yeah, wow, this is so insane!" Like, just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like following what he liked, because that's kind of
Yeah.
what you do as a kid. You follow your dad. At least that's what I did. So to wrap it all up, why I picked guitar. He banged on a guitar. He didn't take it as serious as I do now, but like he
Mm-hmm.
casually played some covers. And then he um he would do that, and then he would show me these DVDs and then have music all in the house. So it was just fitting that like the guitar was like the no-brainer. There's like nothing was ever an option other than the guitar. So it's just
Right. Hmm.
I don't know, just like it literally was no choice but that.
Gotcha. It wasn't a second thought or anything. It was like, this is what it
Nah,
is, and that's what I want to do.
never ever. It was just solely guitar, only guitar forever.
Did you ever try another instrument, like when you were trying to like find your spot, or it's like, no,
No, because like I tried and I learned from my dad playing on my dad's guitars. Like they were like this acoustic's big on me now. So imagine me being a little kid trying to play
oh,
it. But
for
like
real.
yeah, like he taught me how to play, like the very beginning of how to play. Um and yeah, like there was never a drum set around. There was never a bass guitar around, and
Hmm.
I never really cared because I thought the guitar was just the coolest thing anyway. So it was like it just kind of lucked out. I lucked out. Now, had my dad been a drummer, and if he liked Neil Peart from Rush and John Bonham from
Ooh, yeah.
Zeppelin, I could be a drummer right now. But I don't know. It's just so happened that he liked guitar, so I liked guitar. It's just
Makes
funny how it
sense.
worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that carried you pretty much from young age through high school. Like, just were you known for playing the guitar growing up?
No, not at all, man. So, it's funny. Like I said, my story is weird in a good way. So, like, I was really into guitar from like 11, that's when I started, to about 14. Um, at the same time, I was playing baseball and just sports in general.
Ah.
Baseball is
Mhm.
the sport that I was relatively good at. Um, and so baseball took over. I got really good. Like really, like my high school team was good. Ended up playing in college at Division 2 level.
Ooh.
So guitar. So like as an athlete, if I could use that
Mhm.
terminology, it just wasn't like I didn't have enough time. to like dedicate to the instrument. So like I kind of just did what my dad did, just kind of just like had it in the background and like bang on it whenever. So I was not really nobody to this day. Like people hit me up from like high school and stuff. I'm like,
Mhm.
dude, I had no idea you played the guitar. I'd be like, well, I mean, I kind of really didn't play it when you knew me. So it's
Yeah.
like it's not like it's not like it was a hidden thing. It's just something I've kind of really taken seriously
Right.
as time has gone on. But yeah, I was just known for being like an athletic dude, and that was just kind of like my niche crowd, if you will, like the sports guys and girls, whatever. It's just I was never really like I was never in the band. I was never a band geek. I was none of that until much later in life, ironically, which is just weird how that works.
So what position did you play when you were playing baseball?
Uh, I played third base, but I
Okay.
wasn't very good. I wasn't very good in the field.
Mhm.
I just could hit relatively well. So
Oh
like
man.
that, they would stick me out in the outfield if need be.
Mhm.
Like I could catch, I could catch a fly ball, but
Right.
like I was never really good in the field. I was okay, but I was I guess lucky enough to hit the ball decently every once in a while. So that
So
that that, that kept me in the lineup.
so was it something like because it's interesting on, talking about sports on your story because it's like was that something that you did just because you were good at it or did you have a passion for it?
I think I looking back on it, like I'm very burnt out with sports and like I don't ever want to have a catch for fun now. Like I just or like go to the batting cages. Like I did that
Right.
for like 22, 23
Ooh,
years. Like
right.
yeah, and like by the end of it, I was so burnt out. But at the time when I was a teenager, like yeah, I really loved it. That was so like it was a combination of a passion, and just like I said, happened to be somewhat decent at it. And I was like a big time like New York Yankees fan. Like
Mhm.
Derek Jeter was like the equivalent of like my Eddie Van Halen. You know what I mean? Like
Oh man,
I
yeah,
looked
yeah,
up to
for
that. You know
real.
what I mean? Like I love Derek Jeter. I still do. Like like
Mhm.
I love the Yankees, like the late '90s, early 2000s Yankees team. So yeah, just kind of just like I don't know, combination of being passionate about it and kind of being good at it steered me into that direction, and kind of the guitar and music took a back seat just because like I said, man, there's only so much
Yeah.
time you have in
Mhm.
a day to like dedicate something to, and for me, like I really struggle to like have hobbies. I only have passions. Like
Ooh,
I,
that's deep.
I struggle. Yeah, like, I struggle to like casually like be a fan of something. Like now it's like if I do something, it's like to put it crudely, it's like how can I like make money doing this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Nah,
And that might be like kind of taboo to say, but like it's just
but
kind of
it's
like
honest.
yeah, yeah. Hey, I'm
Yeah.
being honest, man. Like if I have if I have a hobby and I'm taken away from my job or my passion, it's like, well, is the juice worth the squeeze? And I'm
Mhm.
not saying like I only do things for money, but I'm just saying like you only got 24 hours in a day. You got to pay the bills. So like the more
Exactly.
hobbies you have, the less time you take away from the things you unfortunately have to dedicate your time to.
Right. Now,
So
I fully get that because I kind of have that tendency as well. That like when I get interested in something, I tend to go like just head deep into it. Like there's no turning back. I want to know any and everything about it.
for
And
sure, man.
I mean, and that's one of the things that, led me to connecting with you was, I got to a point where it was just like, man, I can't figure this out by myself. I need help. And it's funny because you are one of three individuals that kind of inspired me to keep going and to kind of be where I'm at today with all of this. It
Oh, well,
because
thank you, man. That's
yeah,
very kind of you to say. Thank you, dude.
for real, like it was you, it was Jamie Slays and Matt from Goliath Studios. Like getting started, I had a bunch of questions and I just shot like a ton of people, famous people, all these, simple basic questions. And it was you three who actually responded. And I was like, oh man, these people are actually, care enough to answer my question. That was pretty dope. And from there, it just kind of grew. So without
Well,
you
well,
three, yeah,
thank you, man.
yeah.
I
So,
appreciate that, man.
yeah.
That's and your passion shows because I mean, dude, you're doing this right now. Like this whole like the streaming, the audio, the YouTube, the whatever, the guitar. God, you forget it. Like you play an instrument as well. Like
Yeah.
you can't casually do that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're like you said, you go in 100%. You're going in 100% right now just because you figured out like to set this up right now is like that takes a lot of like knowing what you're doing
Oh yeah.
as well as being a musician at the same time. So like you can't casually like see what I'm saying? Like you can't casually just like like I'm just gonna casually jump into this today, just do it for fun. Like no, you like have to know everything and so much
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And like you said, there's no turning back. So like I can certainly see how that applies to you because like you have to have passion to do this stuff. So I give you a lot of credit as well, man.
Well, I appreciate it. And for those of you
No, no worries,
watching or
man.
listening, like he had no idea that that was a thing until now. But
Yeah, I'm just being honest, man.
yeah. No, 100%, man. And so getting back on track. So because we can go through rabbit holes all day, every day. So you're in college, you're playing baseball.
Uh-huh.
What you finish college, if
Yep.
if memory serves me correctly, with a degree in criminal justice.
Correct. I wanted to do law enforcement I graduated in 2014. That's what I want. I had my heart set on doing law enforcement. And by law enforcement, I'm call it how it is, like being a police officer because at the
Mm-hmm.
time I wanted to do something physical and you know, uh, kind of do a job that like call it how it is, like it doesn't hurt to like go to the gym and like work
Oh
out for your
yeah.
job. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like I'm just
yeah
being
yeah.
honest. Like that'd be cool. Like, at the time, like I was like 21, 22. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you know, oh man, I could like work out. I could help people. I could like serve my community or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not a bad gig. Like I said at the time. But but I didn't want to do that right away because I wanted to join the military. That's
Mm-hmm.
like I wanted to do that first before I did law enforcement, or so I thought.
Okay, so
And yeah,
so if I'm not sure if I saw it correctly, but you joined as an enlisted first, right?
correct. Kind of a common theme of my life. I separated my shoulder in 2013, um, playing baseball. I
Mm,
needed surgery on it, and I couldn't become an officer, or I couldn't go to officer candidate school because I needed a medical waiver,
right.
and they wouldn't take me. But they would take me as enlisted. It was like there's too much liability on my name
Mm,
if I went as an officer, which is just just unfortunately semantics. But I like kind of bit the bullet and I just like enlisted as opposed to not doing it at all.
right.
Hindsight's 2020, but I don't regret it at all. It's just unfortunately I had to take kind of like a
A
excuse my
roundabout
language, like an
way.
ass backwards way to get to where I needed to go. But
Hmm.
it worked, I guess.
Yeah. So how long were you in for?
In total, I was in for just under 4 years. It was 2 years enlisted, 2 years on the officer side of things. I was an artilleryman enlisted, and then I was an infantryman as an officer.
Oh man, yeah, all
Um,
physical stuff.
yeah, yeah. Again, like I wanted to do like physical stuff. I wanted to do
Yeah.
cool stuff, right?
Right, right.
And that was unfortunately like the downfall and like the catch 22 of it all is because that's what ended my military career and started my music career. So my willingness to like throw my body around and just do only physical stuff caught up to me eventually, and it, like I said, it kind of just like yeah started this in a way.
Which I mean, congrats to you because I mean, like, you didn't let something like that stop you. There's quite a few people out there that, when they get to a career path where it's like, all right, I can't continue, they just tend to shut off. But you just grew so much from it, and yeah, like everything that you're doing now. If it wasn't for that, we probably wouldn't have Stay Metal Ray with us.
No, dude, I'd probably be a captain or yeah, I'd probably be a captain now. Um, God, doing God knows what, and
Hmm.
God knows where in the world. But yeah, dude. So like, I fell in 2016. I fell like 10 to 12 feet from the top of a truck overseas.
Oh
Um,
man.
I think it was in like, it wasn't, yeah, it wasn't anything crazy. Like, I'm not saying like it
Hmm.
was like, the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan. It wasn't like
Right,
that.
right.
Um, so I'm not trying to like paint a picture that's not true. But I did fall. And then I put it off. So when I fell, I herniated a disc in my neck,
Mm.
um, tore my rotator cuff, tore my labrum, and tore something in my elbow. And
Oh man.
I put it off from getting fixed for like a year and a half. So like I went through officer candidate school with all that. Not to
Oh
show,
wow.
not to be like, oh, I'm so cool, so
No,
tough.
but
I'm
that's a lot to carry.
I guess, but I'm painting a picture of like how stupid I am, or I was. Because if I said I was hurt,
Hmm.
I wouldn't have gone to
Right.
OCS, officer candidate school. They would have pulled my slot, because then I
Hmm.
would have been messed up. And then now I'd still be enlisted, and now I'd still be at square one. And like, you know, I was just like I hid it from everybody, and I was just like, oh yeah, no, I'm fine. Um, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Again, I don't regret anything I've ever done, so
Right.
I guess it worked out, but
Yeah.
it kind of sucked a little bit, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't fun in the
Yeah.
moment, but I did it, you know.
Nah, I
Yes.
gotcha. So so the military is now past, and if people don't say it again, thank you for your service, for what you did. I know that those jobs are not easy to do. Um,
Ah, no worries, man. Likewise, brother.
so now we're out, and at what point was it that you're like, you know what, I'm going to do this YouTube thing?
So I was in the army when I
Mm,
started.
okay.
So like my channel started after, so like in the military you get 30 days of leave when you have a surgery, or you can get that. I
Mm-hmm.
was lucky enough to get 30 days. So I had to eat a month of not going to work because I had my first shoulder surgery
Mm-hmm.
in Fort Benning, Georgia. And I, for whatever reason, man, I just like made the conscious decision to be like, I want to start putting covers up on YouTube, because I can't do anything else. I can't, my physical life is done. At least I thought at the time. It still kind of is. When I say that, like I'm not. I've had like 10 or 11 surgeries since this first one. Um, and like my physical capabilities will never be what they once were, like
Right.
7,
Yeah.
8 years ago, whatever. Um, but yeah, it's just like I started like YouTube searching like just different amps and different, I don't know, pedals or whatever. I can't really remember
Mm-hmm.
what I was looking up, but I was looking it up, and I remember I found Fluff's channel,
Oh
and,
yeah.
like he inspired me to like just like put a cover up on YouTube. Like he's not known for covers. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's amazing at what he does, and he's an innovator at what
Sure.
he does. And I think anybody who does a guitar YouTube channel owes a lot to him. As
For
there's a
sure.
couple other,
Yeah.
like a couple OGs, if you will. Anyway, man, I found him. I saw it, and I was just like, dude, this is like the coolest thing, man. I want to do not that, but I just want to do it just because like it's fun. It
Right.
looks
Yeah. Yeah.
fun. So I started putting up covers, and they're horrible quality, and I wasn't trying to put quality in because I wanted to get the songs that I had in my brain just out. Because like there's only so much CPU space you have up
Mm-hmm.
here to memorize songs. Like there's only so many you can
Oh yeah.
remember before you forget a song. So I would just upload them, and I did that for the last year of my military career. Um, yeah, and my channel didn't grow at all. Like it did really really bad, and I wasn't really growing. Like I wasn't trying to grow it, but I also was like dejected and discouraged for not growing. Even
Mm-hmm.
though like looking back, I was like, well, what do you expect? You weren't trying that hard. But like I
Yeah.
guess I was naive to the fact that I thought like, oh, you just upload a video and you get 5,000 subscribers, and that's it. Like and it's a cakewalk. I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know how hard it was going to
Yeah.
be. So like my first year was predominantly covers, just getting them out of my head, kind of thing.
Gotcha. Yeah. I speaking of that, yeah, there's someone I was talking to, and about this YouTube thing, and you know finding that niche spot, that place on YouTube that fits for you, and like what separates your channel from everyone else's, because yeah, there are a ton of gear channels out there, but what's going to separate it. And I think that you do that quite well, because you have a different take on gear and everything that not a lot of people have. So yeah,
Oh, thanks, man.
yeah, you figured out what worked for you, and seeing that grow is just awesome. So getting
Well,
back
thank
onto
you.
that, you know, and that's also for anyone who's new to YouTube. Like, you got to find the spot that fits for you. You know, you got to find out your personality, you know, and just have fun with it. Like, it is a job if you're trying to do it full time, as you know, as you've
Yeah,
mentioned. You know, the grind is real, but you just gotta keep going and don't get discouraged. It's hard work, but it pays off in the long run.
for sure, man. Yeah, you said it best. Absolutely, dude. Absolutely.
So we're out of the military. You're still doing YouTube covers at this point. So what was
Hmm.
next? Like, when did you go from going to YouTube videos to eventually playing in bands or a band? We'll get to that point in a few.
Yeah, that's a big
Yeah.
gap.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a big span of time. um, I'll I'll just kind of just go through like
Yeah.
I don't know my mentality of what I was trying to do. So yeah, so fresh out, moved back to my mom's house. Was still doing YouTube videos. There's a couple YouTube videos for a brief stint where like I have like all my stuff from my Fort Benning, Georgia house. I had an entire house in Fort Benning,
Oh,
Georgia,
wow.
and then I moved it all back into my room where I grew up from like
Oh,
age
man.
6 to 18. So like it was just like it was so thrown together, but like I don't know, I just kept doing it. But what I figured out in that time span was that no offense to me, but nobody cares about me. They care about things that they care about,
Mhm.
i.e., guitars, guitar brands, amp brands, pedals. And so it was like I bought a 2018 Les Paul Standard in the Mojave burst, which I loved. I love that guitar, but
Mhm.
it wasn't until later that I figured out like what the weight relief was and like all that stuff, and like the guitar looked beautiful but didn't sound or play beautiful.
Mhm.
Anyway, I made a video on it, and like it blew up, meaning it got like 100 views in a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, yeah, like whoa, like
Right.
this is insane. 100 views in a day. Oh my god, I'm famous. I made it. And so like that, I went out and like I sold one of my guitars I had at Fort Benning, and I bought like a Gibson Flying V 2018.
Ooh.
Same thing, it blew up. So like I started trading. I was just like, whoa, this is all right. Wait a minute, this is cool. It's an expensive way to get views, but like it's
Yeah.
working a little bit. You know, like wow,
Yeah.
like 100 views costs $3,000. All right,
Ugh.
I figured it out. You know what I mean? Like I made it. But in all seriousness, like I figured out during this time span that no offense to me, but reality check, nobody knows who you are, and nobody cares about you,
Mhm.
and that's okay. But you got to give them a reason to show up to begin with. And I still feel that way to this day. It's like if I could be a little, if I could say something nice about me now, it's like I think
Mhm.
decent amount of people know who I am,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm very proud of that. But I still have it in the back of my mind that I'm a very small channel, and no offense to me, but like I just did the quad cortex video. Nobody's searching for me specifically. They're searching for the quad cortex, and then they find me and they find my
Mhm.
video, and that's where I hopefully will make them want to come back. It's like I hope they like me a
Yeah.
little bit, and they hope they like my presentation and my playing and my knowledge and my opinions. But in order to find somebody, you gotta have a reason for them to show up. It's like the equivalent of let's say it's like the 80s, and you go to a club in like LA, and you have the opening band, and they play a show. You've never heard of this band because you want to see the headliner,
Yeah.
and like you find the opening band that happened to be like I don't know Motley Crue or something, and that's how Motley Crue blew up.
Mhm.
So like I think of these YouTube videos as like I'm the opening act for the product that I'm showing. It's like they're coming for the product, but then they find me, and it's like, oh, like this guy's, what I hope they get is like, oh, this guy's like enjoyable to watch. I like his content, I like what he has to say,
Oh, for sure.
and then they come back, and like that's like kind of how I view it. It's like the product's the star of the show. I'm just the one that's like presenting it, so I just have to do my best to present myself as well as present the product.
And I have to say you do that extremely well. Like the
Ah,
quad
thanks,
cortex
man.
video, man. Like, one of the things that I enjoy about your channel is that, again, like we've talked several times, and you are the same person all around. And with that video in particular, so many people are like almost scared to record and put out like I'd say not necessarily their errors or their mistakes, but
Yeah.
like trying to figure something out. And when you were doing that, I was like, this is exactly how I feel like if I had that, I would do the same thing. Like, how do you use this thing?
You
And
talk about like when
so,
I was like you're talking about when I was like
yeah,
messing up and like didn't know what I was doing. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because it's relatable. It just shows like, I think that's one of the things when it comes to YouTube and certain people is that they've been doing it for so long that they forget that people don't know what they know. And so when they get a device and they're like, okay, I've seen someone do this, they hook it up, they plug it in or whatever, and you're like, how did they get to here? They don't show
Yeah.
all the in between stuff, and sometimes they do, or they do it so fast or without the reason why. And so on that video, it just kind of showed like, hey, this is what we're doing. It's like, okay, this one's, too loud. Let's switch it up. Let's try this. Let's try that. And you're seeing it real time, what some of these knobs do and some of these things. And you're like, okay, I see the principles and what he did in order to get this tone.
Yeah.
Towards and some people like, oh, I want this cab, I want this, and boom, and they got the amazing sound. And you're like, okay, for the average person who gets something like a, quad
Right.
cortex, they may be a little over the head. But again, the comfort of watching that video and being relatable to it was just amazing.
Well, thanks, man. I thank you for the compliment. And it's a I'm gonna try to say. I guess I back in the day, like 3 years ago, like I was like, all right, I have to be more professional on camera.
Right.
I have to be more. I have to be. I've been doing it for 2 years at the time. It's time to like step it up, right? So like I would make try to like script out my dialogue, or like I would try to like get rid of any sort of playing mistakes, and like I would try to just make it super clean. And it was such a nightmare because like I stumble on words literally every single sentence. That's just how I speak, and I've figured that out over the years. Like I talk very slow, I misspeak all the time, I say things that don't make sense. I I make up words, I say words that aren't real.
Same.
Um yeah, yeah, like and I think a lot of people do that, and that's cool. So like that's just who I am. I'm not like a well-spoken individual. That doesn't mean I'm stupid, but like I'm not good at making immaculate sentences every single time I open my mouth. That's just not me.
Right.
Same with playing. Like when I have the ability to record and like I plan out my songs or whatever, like I think I'm okay at playing. I'm a solid player, right? But
Hmm.
like improvising and like coming up with stuff in real time in front of the camera, I mess up all the time. It's like it was such a headache to like try to polish my videos that everything was just getting cut, and it was just like a million jump cuts, and it looked like it didn't look real, it didn't look organic. So I was just like, you know what, man, like this is just who I am, dude. Like I say all the time. I don't say words that make sense in the context of the sentence.
Hmm.
I just this is who I am. So like I guess if people can relate to that, that's really cool because that just is genuinely who I am.
Yeah.
I'm not a well polished human. I'm just me that just does what he does, I guess, you know?
Oh, I get that 100% because like I mumble a lot because where
Mhm.
I grew up, if you raised your voice, that meant you were in trouble. So by
Yeah.
nature, I'm a very soft-spoken person. I don't raise my voice a whole lot unless, like, hey, this person's in trouble or something like that, or I'm really trying to get my point across. So
Right.
speaking into a camera, like I have to articulate again,
Mhm.
right there. Like it's hard for me because, again, I don't raise my voice too often, and also my mind gets ahead of my mouth way too often. So I'm
Mhm.
thinking about like three words ahead. And so my sentence, like I'll say some, there's a video I'm working on right now. Depending on when I put this one up, it may already be out. But I mentioned on how to like down tune a guitar, and I mentioned that every guitar should come with an Allen wrench and or a truss rod, like the adjustment tool itself. I'm like, well, every guitar has a truss rod. When I went back and watched it, I was like, it is what
Yeah,
it is.
every guitar should have a truss rod. Yeah, yeah, in the context, that doesn't make sense, but yeah, like you just you misspoke. Yeah, you made a mistake, and but that's kind of funny though, because like that for better or for worse, that makes that sentence in that video unique to you. And even if
Yeah.
you messed up, like, dude, there's nothing wrong with saying the wrong thing. Like, you just It's all
Oh yeah.
kind of relatable. So it's kind.
Uh-oh. I think we froze for a brief sec.
I got you still.
Okay. All right. There we go. It just buffer a quick sec. All right. Cool. But yeah.
We're good.
All right. So, all right. Going back to the story, if I can remember where we left off. So you're starting to involve in more into the YouTube channel.
Uh huh.
And so your band that you have now, how
Mm-hmm.
did, if I'm saying this correctly, Luna Morte,
Luna Muerta.
Luna Morta, how did that start? Like, how did y'all meet, start forming the ideas? Because you also have do you have a name for your character in the band, or just a
No,
style so far?
not yet. So yeah, there's. So answer your first question. So like I've been kicking that around and kicking that name around myself for like 3 years, like just as like a moniker for like my own individual stuff. Like back in the day, like I would make riffs and like I would put them up on Spotify and whatever, and like nobody would listen to it, and that's fine. Like again, it was kind of similar to like the reason why I started my YouTube channels. Like I just wanted to get it out of my head, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so then I met the other two individuals in the band, Pat and Jenny. Pat the drummer, Jenny the singer. I met Pat first because for like 2 weeks I was in a Slipknot tribute band as the vocalist,
Okay.
and
I remember that.
yeah, it happened last summer. That band has since, I believe, kind of fallen apart. That's not my place to
Mm,
tell their story. I don't
okay.
want to misspeak, but yeah, I just left just because it like kind of like I was saying, just it wasn't going anywhere. At least it wasn't going anywhere for me.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, um, but he was the drummer, and so we stayed in touch. Like he and I were like, I became friends with him. He was like the only one I was like became friends with in the band or whatever. So like we stayed in touch, and he had the same similar drive and mentality of me. It's like he wants to create stuff. He wants to you know continue to push out creative ideas just because it's what musicians do. So he's like, hey, I got this female vocalist. She's in Brooklyn, New York.
Mm,
Um, you want to like write some songs and like see where it goes? And I was just like, dude, absolutely. Cause I really genuinely love female vocalists in metal.
right.
One, it stands out.
Mm-hmm.
Stands out so much, but I think it's an awesome dichotomy and duality between like heavy music and like a female vocal. And generally speaking, female vocals are a lot smoother and just easier to listen to compared to a male vocal. And that's just my
Sure.
opinion.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would agree. I think you know what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think it just separates. It's like such an awesome like creates such an awesome sonic space and such a relationship between heavy music and like a female vocal line. I just think it sounds really awesome. So when he said that, I was like, dude, absolutely. So when I started writing the music, I wrote one song in drop A, and then I wrote another song in drop F to further hit home. Like we are so down tuned. This song was so down tuned, so low. Um, and then put like clean female vocals on top of it to like create more of a separation. Like drop F, and then her like singing vocals,
Sure.
and it just like I think it created a really awesome relationship. Um, so yeah, that was just kind of like the infancy of it all. It's just like I met him through doing a tribute band for a couple weeks. Yeah, and it just kind of just like spawned this cool little thing. And it was really difficult because of the whole, nature of the world in 2020 and
Right.
early 2021. But like they know a whole bunch of people in like the central Jersey area that are interested in like trying out and or joining. So in theory, we could have like a 5/6 piece band in the
Mm,
near future whenever, everybody gets, I guess the vaccine and the world gets kind of like quote unquote normal again, whatever that
right.
entails now. Who
Mm-hmm.
knows what that will look like. But yeah, man, I owe them a lot because they kind of like took a shot on me and vice versa. Like all I've ever wanted to do is be in a real band. And this is like my first band I've ever been in my entire life. So like it just worked out like a happy accident. I'm so thankful and so excited, man. It's really, really cool.
Okay. And so is she do y'all like meet up in a certain place, or has she moved from Brooklyn to be closer in order for you guys to keep writing?
No, so that makes it even harder. So he's in Jersey, I'm in Philly, she's in Brooklyn. So it's like on a map, me, him, her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it kind of worked out again with the pandemic, is because I write generally speaking, I write majority of the music here, and then I send it over to him. He puts drums, and then he sends it to her, and then she makes her vocals. So it's like it kind of just works out. And then we dedicate like every month or 6 weeks, give or take. Again, with the whole pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
try to not get too intimate with people if you don't need to. Like
Right.
you know what I mean. Like you don't. We're not trying to meet up every single week because like
Mm-hmm.
it's just not worth it or whatever. Anyway, yeah, we just like block off a spot like every 6 weeks, and Pat has a studio in Jersey, and yeah, we just jam there, and we just kind of meet up and just kind of run through stuff and just go over ideas and just kind of just hang out, man. Just kind of make cool
Yeah.
music, you know.
For sure. And I'll also put the link for the music videos down below.
Oh, thanks,
Um,
man. I appreciate that.
yeah, absolutely. Because your character that you have in there is something wild, man. I totally dig it. It's definitely different. I don't know why, but because I don't think there's any part that's like really related to it, but I get such like a Children of the Corn vibe from it. Like kind of
That's interesting. Yeah,
like that almost early 90s type, I wouldn't say scare
yeah,
tactic, but like it just has that bravado of like, back when, I'd say science wasn't the scary thing. It was more about what a person is capable of doing on their
yeah,
own.
yeah, yeah. Well,
So,
thank you, man. That's I could if that's it's funny. Like you kind of caught me off guard here because that's like kind of literally what I wanted to create. Like I'm a me personally. Like I'm a
mhm,
massive horror movie fan. Like
yeah.
obsessed with horror, like 80s horror movies, slasher movies. Like I watch one almost every single night. And
Mhm.
so like I've always just wanted to create my own kind of like comic book action character, horror character. Um, and so like I took I think it's most relatable to like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but Children of the Corn's kind of similar, like backwoods country, like
Right.
like off the beaten path. And yeah, that's totally like the vibe I wanted to go with initially. And like it'll constantly evolve and change, but yeah, like for the first couple of videos and photos or whatever, that was certainly the vibe. And honestly too, man, like people will say anything about gimmicky stuff, they'll call it
Mhm.
gimmicky or whatever. I don't care, man. Like I think you know, it's better than being a regular old band bro in a black shirt, trying to look tough. You know what I mean? Like
Diamond
there's
does that.
you got a million mean muggers that
Yeah.
split the crowd open, split it down the middle and say when this song kicks in, do X, Y, and Z. You got thousands of bands that do that. So,
Yeah.
if you want to take shots at what we're doing, that's cool, man. That means we're getting under your skin for
Yeah.
better or for worse. So I'm
S-
having fun and I'm enjoying myself. So it ain't so bad for me.
So you guys have two music videos out now, I believe,
Yeah,
or is
well,
it three?
yeah, two music videos, and then one we did was like a stop motion kind of
Right.
silly Christmas thing that we did. We just
Mhm.
threw together. But yeah, two music videos, and then we have one coming out April 16th, of 2021.
April
That'll
16th,
be the
the
next one.
day of Mortal Kombat.
Is
I
that really
believe.
Mortal Kombat?
Yes, April
Oh
16th,
man,
HBO Max. They're free plug-in, hey,
uh,
sponsorship,
oh man. I'm not a gamer, so
Oh no, it's the new
I've
movie that's coming out.
well, I'm saying like the
Yeah.
game came first, so
Oh
like
yeah, for sure.
I, I've never cared enough about Mortal Kombat
Yeah.
to check out movies or anything like that. But that's cool, man.
So speaking of so Fragments came out first,
Yes.
and then Stragglers was second. I'm curious because of the vibe and the tone of the two music videos. Is that almost like a continued story that's being told?
No, no. So we were bouncing around conceptual like music videos and stuff. Um, no, and we decided for right now not to do that because I I I think so. the Psycho one for Fragments was my idea, like
Mm-hmm.
kind of like doing shot for shot with the classic movie Psycho, and then the other one Stragglers is kind of like a almost like a Seven, the movie Seven, or a detective murder mystery
Right.
movie, whatever. But they're not connected, and we were thinking about like doing a conceptual thing when we have more time and more of a budget. But it just so happened that like they happen to both be like horror movie themed.
Yeah.
Um, and if this next one, it's got a similar vibe, a little different, but still very much just kind of the nature of what the band has been doing for
I
the
gotcha.
7 months that it's been around. It's a brand. I mean, band's not even like it's barely 6 months old now, so it's like it's still brand new. So
Yeah, and that's something, maybe down the road, get all three of you on here and talk more in
dude,
depth about that. That'd be sick.
we would love to, man. We'd be honored to. We've been talking about it. It's just again, it's just hard with getting three people in a room in 2020 was like very frowned upon.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, we're totally down for it, man. So thank you in advance if you ever
Yeah,
want to do
for
that.
sure.
Just let me know. Well, we'll make it happen. Thank you. I really
Hmm.
appreciate that.
And so we've talked briefly about some things concerning music theory, and
Yes.
like you and I, we've talked plenty about music theory.
Right.
Uh, Now, did you go back to school for music theory?
Yeah. So again, remember I got out of the military
Mm-hmm.
with a degree. I already had a degree, a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Um, that is totally not usable in the music field. So I could have been like, well, I'm just gonna get a desk job and do music as like a hobby or whatever, like YouTube as a
Mm-hmm.
hobby and try to make it on the side. But I said, the hell with that. I want to go full on. This is all I want to do. This is it. This is it. And if I fail, I fail. So I'm very lucky that um I don't like to talk about this, but I'm very lucky that I do receive disability,
Mm-hmm.
just as like a way to keep the lights on in the house,
Yeah,
I
no,
guess.
for sure.
I just get awkward talking about it because with anything that has to deal with money, you know,
Yeah,
just
I
it,
got you.
sounds it sounds like
I'm the same
bragging. It sounds
way.
like bragging. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like it's just
I don't like bringing up it. Um, far
right.
too
But
often arguments and people get disagreements and stuff like that over it. And yeah,
yeah, just then anyway, it's just personal. That's all it is, personal business.
gotcha,
But anyway,
gotcha.
I'm just bringing that up to say that I was lucky that I had that to hold me afloat.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, the army or the military takes care of soldiers getting out because then they have the post 9/11 GI Bill where they pay for school most often, depending on where you go, how much, blah blah
Right.
blah. So yeah, I was just like, dude, I'm going to community college. I'm gonna get a associates in music theory. So I went and did that from 2018 to 2019. I knocked it out in a year
Whew.
because all I needed was the core classes because all the other ones I already had
Right.
from all my other college stuff. So it just like transferred over, whatever. So then I went to the University of the Arts in 2019 and started going for my bachelor's in they call it the music business program. But there's like music theory classes and encompassing in it, and but it also talks about like I don't know, just like live sound production and recording, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's an entire cool little program.
Hmm.
It's an entire thing. And I took a semester off because I was working with STL Tones for 6 months, just helping out with their plug and stuff. But I couldn't juggle school and work for them, so I went back to school in 2020, and then now I've just been doing it remotely here. Like so, that's like school and YouTube are my two full-time jobs, if you
Gotcha.
will.
Uh, I fully get that. I just finished off one course, and I tend to do accelerated classes, 8 weeks.
Yeah,
It's nice because
It's g-
short time, but man, some of that workload, it's like you got no time.
exactly. Yeah, it's like you get it out of the way, but you got to suck through it for the 8 weeks or whatever. Yeah.
Hmm. So you're working through all that, and at what point was it that you had a passion to do it, or a need, or was it something that you like? I made a video one time out of almost irritation because I kept seeing like some of these questions popping up so many times. I was like, you know what? Let me just do a video on this and kind of like answer all of that.
Hmm.
When you decided to make your website, music theory for metal,
Yeah.
what was I hate using the word feeling, but what was the drive behind that? Was it for a need, or just, where people hit you up about stuff and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to answer all this in one shot and just put this product out there so people can get their answers and stop bugging me about it? Or was it something like, no, I really want to do this?
Yeah, it was never. People were not bugging me. So no, it wasn't like that at all. But it was a combination of things. So I started during lockdown. So about a year ago now,
Mm-hmm.
I like was really itching to do it because like I don't know, I was just we're kind of used to the lockdown lifestyle now, but
Mm-hmm.
at the time, man, I just be like, dude, I'm so bored. I have so much time now. Like, what am I gonna do with myself?
Right.
Like that's just how everybody felt. So that was strike one. I had time. Strike two was I was learning music theory in school, but like I was learning on the piano, learning all the different keys, the scales and stuff. So that's irrelevant to the guitar in terms of like actual playing the guitar
Mm-hmm.
because it's a different instrument. And I was also learning these songs that had nothing to do with metal or even rock and roll. It goes like Mary Had a Little Lamb. You know, what's the interval in the Mary Had a Little Lamb melody? Or Twinkle Twinkle Little Star,
Oh,
Twinkle
wow.
Twinkle. Like, what's that? What's that interval? And so like it was all well and good. Like, okay, like I'm understanding theory and I'm getting the hang of it, I guess. But I would spend all day at school learning theory, and then I'd come home and then I'd be in drop B and just chugging and doing what I always did. And,
Right.
like, not applying it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, it was so frustrating to me. It's like, why am I would say, like, "Why am I going to school? Why am I wasting my time with this stuff if I'm not applying it?" And I think that's what a lot of metal players say to themselves. And so eventually I, like, I don't know, man, I just kinda just forced myself to, like, apply it and figure it out. Um, so it's just, like, a combination of, like, having time, figuring it out on the guitar, and, like, the 3rd strike, strike 1, strike 2, strike 3 is, like, I know there's a need for people that wanna learn theory, and so, like, the goal with the whole website was to, like, create a website that takes all this stuff meaning, like, learning theory with Twinkle Twinkle Little Star,
Mm-hmm.
or Mary Had a Little Lamb, put it through this filter up here, and put it out in a product on a website where, like, I can show you real world applicability and examples like from like Lamb of God songs or a Slipknot song, and like show like, hey, this is a minor second interval in the beginning of Eyeless. Starts out with a unison interval, then slides down to a minor second when Mick Thompson plays, the intro. Like that is, in my opinion, resonates so much more than like, all right, like play, hot cross buns and then like play like the minor harmony of that. I'd be like, this is so not what I care about. So like I hope that answers your question. It was just like
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to create something that's much more relevant for metal players. And even
For
if it
sure.
doesn't make like $1 million, which I don't expect it to ever blow up like that, I can help people out and I can like be proud of a product that I have. And
Absolutely.
I can always add to it. And I plan on adding to it here in the summer once I'm done school again. Once I have more time in the summer to crank out some more content for it.
Yeah, for sure. And again, that will be linked down below as well. And
Dude, you're so good
I
to me. Thank you, man.
nah, man, you deserve it for real. Like,
Ah, thank you.
I'm, as we've talked about passions and stuff like that. If it's something that I can't get behind, like, it goes by the wayside. And everything that you do, I fully support. And you guys have just been knocking it out of the park. Um, and I've
Thank you,
also
man.
sent that into another Discord server for those guys to check out because they got like a music theory and stuff like that. Because everyone's different, like not everyone is kind of like Matt Heafy, where he knows a little bit of music theory and whatnot, and he's just been playing for so long. He's kind of adapted to playing. He knows kind of what works and what doesn't. Um,
Right.
but then he also has, like Corey and Paulo, who all those guys now they're spun up on it. But I remember seeing an interview. That was the one with Kirk Hammett on Icons, and
Mhm.
when they were talking about how Cliff when he was around,
Yeah.
that like they would be writing something and he just like knew it right off the bat. He'd be like, oh, we just need to change this or move this there. And unfortunately, when he passed, they lost that, and that's when Kirk and James had to really dive deep into the books and get an understanding. So everyone's a little different. Some people, they're like, oh, I've never
Right.
messed with theory, but it's something that I feel like people think that you get theory and it's like, oh, nerd talk, but it's like, no, like it helps, like it makes sense
Yeah.
like once you start getting it. So that's been awesome to deal with, because like there's times where I've gone back and now I've watched some of the videos, I'm like, man, I didn't catch that the first time. Or so much, but once you like understand this amount of information and then you go over and watch something, it's like, okay, I understand this part now, and it just kind of expands.
Yeah.
So
That's what, with learning anything, man. If I could say just real quick about like, your whole summary right there with like Kirk and Cliff and all that. Like people always say the cliche with the metal players, and they
mhm,
say, "I don't want to learn theory because it'll hinder my ability to be creative." And in my opinion, I think that's just a bunch of baloney.
yeah.
Like that's like me saying I don't want to learn Japanese because it'll make me speak English worse. Like, what are you like, what? No, it won't. Like, what are you talking about, man? Like, just call it how it is. Like, you're either afraid to learn it, you don't want to put the time in, you're scared of it, whatever. Like, just, come on, man. Just call
Yeah,
it how it is.
it almost seems like when they say that, it's like they the way it translates to me is that I don't want something to ruin the experience of discovering something for myself. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it's like I get what you're saying, but it's like you're kind of like playing in a small sandbox at that time when there is a whole world out there, and theory can help you go from, instead of just sandbox, from one corner to the other. It's like, hey, we can go from this country to that country to that country. It changes
All right.
so much dynamic. And
For
yeah,
sure.
like just because you learn music theory doesn't mean that you won't discover something. I mean, people are still, studying and trying to get better at it. So,
Right. And what everybody says to me is like, well, when I did the Jim Root interview, that's what
hmm
everybody loves to bring up. This is like, well, Jim Root said he doesn't know theory, so why do I? Or why do you need to know it, meaning me? And I
hmm
always say, well, I don't have the luxury of being in arguably the biggest metal band of all time.
right.
Like I'm so like, dude, I'm not in Slipknot, I'm not in Avenged Sevenfold, I'm not in Five Finger Death Punch, I'm not in Metallica, I'm not in Iron Maiden. Like
hmm
I have to hustle to even make it, uh, uh, to even gain a little bit of attention in the whole world of guitar playing. So like, dude, I don't I don't have the luxury of being in like the 9-piece Slipknot band where I can just like come up with something and sell millions of records when I put it out. Like you got to hustle. And the last thing I'll say about theory is like I say this all the time is every guitar player who knows theory is a good guitar player. But let me reverse it. Not every good guitar player knows theory, but every guitar player who knows theory is a good guitar player.
So,
And that is
yeah,
like that's like definitive. Like
100%.
there's think of like all the greats out there, like John Petrucci, big theory whiz,
hmm
amazing. Cliff Burton, you know, amazing bassist, etc. Like the list goes on and on. So that's just what I always tell
Yeah,
people is like, don't be scared about theory, man. Like and don't discredit it without even trying it.
for sure. So, about ready to wrap it up here, but before
Sure,
we
man.
get to that end portion, um, got a curveball to throw at you. Kind
Oh
of, sort
man,
of, or kind of, sort of. I mean, you're saying that you're hitting things out of the park back in the day. So let's see how you handle this one.
I like that. Nice
All right.
reference.
So, knowing what you know now, and I'm glad that you got your hands on the quad cortex.
Yeah.
If you had to start from square one, like completely build your rig all over again,
Hmm.
and you were, let's say you were not necessarily on an unlimited budget, but within, let's say it's not $1 million, but if you were to replace everything and start over, what gear would you start with?
Okay. So my brain is like So like we're talking like cab, amp, maybe like one or two pedals, guitar,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes, because and the reason I want to ask is because again, you've had your hands on a bunch of different gear, and so
Yeah.
from your experience, if you had to start over, what would be
hmm
your list of essentials?
Okay. I'll go from like boring to least boring. Start with the cab. Dude. I have just had a frame over here. I have my oversized Mesa 4x12.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't played through every cabinet in the world, but my God, like like it's hard. It's like it's so hard to beat a Mesa cab. Like everybody uses them. It's cliche, but dude, they're so good. And then in terms of like studio use, because I'm in a small loft here, like I don't have the ability to crank that thing without blowing the windows out.
Mm-hmm.
I love the aux box. That's what I use as like my IR loader, my speaker
Okay.
cabinet
Yeah.
for everything. I love that thing. It's like it's never failed on me. Knock on wood. It's just so good, and I've had it for 2 years, and I've used it on every single video pretty much since I've had like a real amp.
Hmm.
I've never used anything different. So that'd be my cab. Amplifier. This is gonna be a curveball. I don't know if you're gonna expect this. It would be the Granifier from Powered by Omega. So
Okay.
I had the luxury of playing an Obsidian. Oh no, I'm sorry. The Iridium. And it was called the Iridium before it was called the Granifier. Same amp, different name, just an older
Mm-hmm.
model. They renamed it like a year and a half ago or whatever. But dude, like I borrowed it from some guy local here. Um, dude, just the sickest amp. Just the only amp, in my opinion, that people always say, like, oh, like this amp doesn't need an overdrive or whatever. And then like I play it and like I it needs an overdrive. The Iridium definitively is the only amp that I've ever just took my cable, went straight into the front of it, played, and like was like genuinely blown away by it.
Mm.
It was just the sickest thing. So that would be my amplifier. Pedals, pretty cliche for me. For anybody who knows me, Evh Chorus,
Mm-hmm.
Fort and 33. I I love that combination. It's so sick. I love the 33. I just wish the 33 had a little bit more low end. It almost cuts out too much low end. Like it's
Okay.
great for like
Yeah.
low tuned guitars, but like standard tuned or like detuned, it's almost too ice picky.
Yeah. It's meant for the genty players and all
Yeah,
that.
it's like I mean it's designed for Frederick who's in F standard, so
Yeah.
it makes sense. Um, but guitar is like the bucket list guitar that I have to save up and get one day would be well, let's just pick a date. A 1979 Gibson Les Paul Custom in Silverburst. And people will say, "Oh, like the Adam Jones guitar?" No, an original, not the Adam
Yeah.
Jones signature guitar. I don't want a signature guitar. I don't like signature guitars anymore. I just want my own thing. That would be the guitar.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
What would you do? I want to hear you. I'll put you on the spot real
Oh
quick. I want to
man.
hear you.
Um.
Lightning round.
Yeah, I know. Here we go. Well, honestly, and it's funny because like I have almost a total opposite experience because I've never really owned a cab. All my stuff has always been digital. So
hmm
if I were to go that route, um, I mean, I'm looking at plugins at this point, and it's man, it'd be a tough one between the Fort and Cali and the Archetype Gojira
Can't go wrong
because
with either.
yeah, because have a deep love and passion for thrash metal, and that's
Uh-huh.
all due. And I kind of came to this epiphany not too long ago. That came about because my hand, I have the hardest time jumping into chord positions. So I was like, oh well,
hmm
let me just like hit fast and hit these one or two notes and power chords, and there I go.
That's
So
thrash metal for you.
yeah, yeah, but it's a tough one between those two, honestly, because the Cali just has like that blue thrash and the red thrash channels are just amazing to my ears. But that Gojira, it has so much power to it. It's just unreal how they captured that.
There's a lot
But
of stuff in that thing, that's for sure.
oh yeah, so I would have used that as probably my cab and the head. For guitar, I mean, I've messed with a few, but there's one out there. I never got a chance to play it because they kind of stopped making it. But Legator actually had a V at one point,
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, they have the Spectre now, which is kind of like a more metalish V. But
Mhm.
I love V's because I always play sitting down. Like I don't ever try to go, I don't expect to play any shows or anything like that. I like making music for myself, and V's to me just they sit more comfortably. I like playing in the classical position, but the way when I pick up my leg guitar, it just like I just want to play it even more. Like there's something about it,
Mhm.
but it's not a V. So
Kind of
I
contradicts what you're saying.
yeah, I really wish Ryan, if you see this, I want to try one. But so I'd have to probably go with my Solar, my new one. This here, I'll pull it. 'Cause I'm looking
That red one, right?
at this bad this bad boy right here. This would probably be the one. It has
Oh
the
yeah, that one.
auto-tune
Yeah.
bridge. The only thing, and I mentioned this before in my video for this, the only thing is that it has the I'm blanking on the pickup right here. It's like a dual stack pickup, so if I wanted to switch them out, I can't do that if I want Fishman's. That's my only gripe about it. But yeah, the thickness, the like everything about this, it feels like home to me. Um,
Yeah.
the way the sitting, like, yeah. So that would be my choice
Excellent choice, by the way.
for right now. There's so many different guitars that I wish I had a chance, to try. Um,
Same.
like it's hard because like but I'll say this, after playing with some of these for a while, like those are the two that I tend to gravitate towards the most. I started this channel with that Schecter, and it's my second least favorite guitar, just because of the the neck is incredibly thin and small. Like it feels like a child's toy, like almost like a twig. And I think that it may have just been mine, but I think that the truss rod is actually rattling around in the neck now.
Oh jeez.
Yeah. So that was like, but yeah, there's so many that I would like to try, trying to find that perfect fit, like Dean, they make some V's and whatnot. I know that Kiesel makes some. But yeah, that
Yeah.
Evh Spectre one, man, that thing also looks pretty rad. But yeah, I don't know. From my from my little inexperience right now, you know, I just know that V's are for me. That's where it has like fit well. It sits well with me. Um, I know I'm one like probably 10% of guitar players out there that like V's, but
Ah,
you know,
more for you then. These are
yeah,
cool.
exactly. But Ray, again, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your day, being on this episode
Ah,
and hanging out with me, and you know, I I can't wait to see what's ahead. Um, for you, and you know, I, I'm just super excited to see your YouTube journey continuing to grow, and it was like I mentioned before to you that seeing you work with Fortin was just I was really giddy about that because you
me
know
too.
I knew it was something that you love their products, and to see that and to see some of the content that was coming out, I was super excited about that.
Well, thanks, man. And yeah, thank you for all the kind words, man. And no worries. I had a blast today, and I always have a blast hanging out with you, man. So it's the least I could do. This. Thank you for having me on, man. It was a lot of fun, and hopefully we could do it, sooner rather than later.
Oh, absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap it up for today of the very first episode of Breakdown Theory. Thank you all, and Ray, I'll see you all again
Pre-
later.
Pressure's on to anybody else who comes on the show. You gotta
For
match
real.
match
The
my
bar is
first episode.
high.
Bar is way high. No, I'm just kidding. It shouldn't be hard. Piece of cake.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. But thanks again, man.
for sure.